hard for me to see faces.
Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Tuesday, November 8th, 2023. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Apostoli.
Here.
Councilmember Lester.
Here.
Councilmember McGinnis is absent. Vice President Treston.
Here.
President Bendo.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of Acting City Manager Ron Walsh and Corporation Counsel Dennis Cohen. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
Tell you what, Mr. Fabrizio, how about you lead us? All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first meeting of November. I guess even though they're not here tonight, we'll start by congratulating Brendan Finn, Chris Fiumara, and Michael Reinhardt on their election to the City Council. So they'll be starting January 1st. So congratulations to them. Another thing is I just today received a letter from the New York State Department of Public Service, who are the people who are running the Article 7 process for Empire Wind, but this is for something completely different. Apparently, our gas company, National Grid, is seeking rate hikes on the order of $228 million, which they say will average out to about a $28.52 per month increase in your gas bill. So they're holding public hearings on this. The closest one to us is on Wednesday, November 15th at 6 p.m. in Mineola at the Peter J. Schmidt Memorial Legislative Chamber, which is on the first floor of the Theodore Roosevelt Executive and Legislative Building. And the address is 1515 Franklin Avenue in Mineola. And I guess...
Can we have that posted on?
Yeah, I'm going to ask probably if we get this posted on the city website, if we can, so people are aware of this. But thought people might like to know they're looking to raise your gas bill $28.52 a month.
Show up.
So... and with that, we'll move on to the city manager's report.
This report tonight was basically the swearing in of the two new police officers, so that would conclude my report.
Okay. And in case you guys missed it, we did just swear in 2 new police officers to our police force.
Last week we did 6.
What's that?
Last week we did.
Mm-hmm.
How many?
We did 4 last week.
Yes,
so.
and last week we swore in 4 new officers.
And we have 1 more coming probably before the end of December.
All right. So with that, we can move on to the agenda.
Okay, our first item this evening is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding the electrical code.
So this item, you'll recall earlier in the year, we increased the fees based upon the administrative costs of our men and women who work in the city to have the licenses for our trades and multiplicity of other things. When we did an audit, this one fee was not increased with all the rest, so this just brings parity to the fee for all the others that have been raised.
All right. Any questions from the council? Any from the public? Seeing none, on to item 2. Oh, sorry, and we will close the hearing. Well, I know.
Okay.
So open and close.
Okay. On to the regular calendar. Item 1 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding electrical code. A hearing has been held on this item already. Item 2 is a resolution oops, sorry, I didn't advance the slides. Sorry about that. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to accept and execute a grant on behalf of the City of Long Beach from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services and authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget.
So these particular grants, this is one of 2 that we received. This grant is going to be used in a technical capacity to build out more of our plate reader system in the city. It is a reimbursement grant, so the money that's going to be spent will be reimbursed by the state.
All right, any questions from the council?
Sure. Ron, what does it cost us each year to operate those? Do we have to subscribe to a service, or is that part of the service?
Yeah, so once the installation actually takes place, there's maintenance that has to take place for each one of the systems. They're actually tied into power. They have their own computer systems actually hanging on them, and the environment here is relatively caustic to these things. So every 5 years or so, they do require replacement. But I don't know off the top of my head what it is.
So it's basically a replacement. It's not
Well, these are to build out additionals and replace, I believe, one of them that has been malfunctioning. I believe.
And the actual data, do we have to pay for that, or is that?
No. The data is ours by when the plates get read. We share our data with the county, and we also get tied into systems that give us it across this downstate area to help solve crimes.
And once we have these, we will have every entrance and exit covered?
Yes.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, on to item 3.
Item 3 is a resolution establishing base proportions in accordance with provisions of Article 19 of the Real Property Tax Law.
And Ray, feel free.
Hi, good evening. Ray Flammer, Tax Assessor. This resolution request is to establish the base proportions for the 23-24 tax year at a 1% limit. It's a yearly resolution after we achieve state authorization from the governor and the legislature. It limits the tax shift between the two classes of homestead and non-homestead, pretty much residential and commercial. Splits the pie between the two classes and limits the shift every year to a 1% shift based on a 33-step calculation determined by state law. And once it's calculated, the Office of Real Property Tax Services then reviews it.
Okay, any questions from the council?
And Ray, from what I understand from last year's numbers, there's a slight shift away from the homestead towards the non-homestead?
That is correct. That's based on equalization rates determined by the state, any physical changes that happen, any court cases, any SCAR cases, small claims assessment review, reductions, physical changes. It all gets put into the calculation, and that's the end result.
And I think I asked this question before. The homestead value is based mostly on the leases, not so much the...
Yeah, the homestead is generally based on comparative sales, the market value of what the property sells for, while the non-homestead is generally based on how much income the property derives.
The property's best use or the property's actual use?
Excuse me, Roy, I didn't hear you.
The property's best use or the property's actual use?
Actual as in use, not the highest and best use.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the council?
No, I just want to say thank you for providing all of the information. I think that it was very helpful in
You're welcome.
understanding the complexity of your position.
Okay, any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, on to item 4.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing settlement of certiorari proceedings.
Turn it over to Ray again for these, if there's any questions.
Hello again. This is a proposed settlement with Seaview Gardens Corporation at 65 West Broadway. It's a 40-unit co-op. This settlement is for 9 years with a 3-year moratorium. It includes a refund of $74,000, which I request split between the 2 years, just in case I have more settlements. We have some flexibility to pay them in the next fiscal year. And they had a reduction of assessed value from 190 to 136.
Okay, any questions from the council? Any from the public? All right, thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Item 5.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract amendment with Pasilico Bove JV.
So I'm going to ask Joe Fabrizio to explain this rather unique situation.
Good evening, Joe Fabrizio, Commissioner of Public Works. This is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to amend the contract with Basilico Bove joint venture for the North Shore Critical Infrastructure Protection Project to include value engineering change orders, commonly referred to as VECOs. The intent of a value engineering change order is to encourage contractors to be innovative and derive alternate methods of construction that serve the same purpose of the original design. In this case, there's an item 14B in the contract with them that calls for installation of auger piles for a concrete pad for the backup generator that's supposed to be installed for the stormwater pump station. The unit price for furnishing and installing the auger piles is $441,000. The Basilico Bove joint venture re-engineered the bottom slab for this pump station slab for the proposed backup generator and incorporated helical piles in lieu of auger piles. The resulting savings for the redesign is $241,176. Under the VECO premise, the contractor and municipality split savings 50-50. Therefore, there'll be the city will receive a credit in the amount of half of the $241,176.81, or $123,588.41. Based on advice from council, we didn't have this provision in our existing agreement. We actually don't have this provision in any of our contracts, and it's something that's commonly in New York State contracts, and it is a provision that encourages contractors to think outside the box, re-engineer designs, and it can save money, like in this case. So therefore, I recommend that we not only approve this resolution, but potentially put this clause in all of our future contracts. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Joe, I just want to thank you for thinking out of the box with going to the state program if that's something that you want to do, and saving the city money again constantly.
Well,
over
thank
the
you.
years. You have saved this city millions and millions of dollars, and you should be applauded again for thinking out of the box.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Joe, just so I have this clear, this is FEMA money that we're getting for this, correct?
Correct. This
And-
project is 100% funded by the FEMA Public Assistance Program.
So
Correct.
we can't split this money because we wouldn't be spending it, correct?
Well, I think I explained this to you in detail.
I know that, but that's why I'm
through-
asking it publicly.
Right, through the various emails. Now, what happens is, the city is capped at this $39 million. So if this project goes over budget, whether it's $1 million or $2 million, the city is going to be responsible for that overage. So by having this change order, or credit change order, it's actually reducing the value of the contract and giving us additional money to spend should something come up on the job that's unforeseen. And believe me, there's a lot of things that are happening on this project that are unforeseen. So it just gives us more flexibility in managing the project. Because again, we have to stay within this $39 million budget, and if we don't, I'm going to be coming to the council to request additional money.
But
So-
isn't the contract limiting? They have a contract for $39 million.
Well, their contract, $39 million is the overall project cost. Now, remember,
Right.
there's many components to this $39 million. We have a $34 million contract with the Basilico Bove joint venture. We have a contract for $1.5 million or so with D&B Engineers and Architects. We have a $600,000 contract with the railroad to pay for their forced materials. So there's a lot under this umbrella of this $39 million. This contract, the PBJV Basilico Bove joint venture contract, is one component. So
And
we're going
that's
to be
the
getting the
$34
credit.
million?
Correct.
This one component.
Right,
And there's
correct.
a contingency set aside?
There
of
is a
$500,000?
contingency in that contract of $500,000, correct.
And they were the sole bidders on this contract?
There was one bidder on this contract, correct.
Okay, and the original contract had the city getting all of this money? Anything they saved us?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, I apologize. Can you repeat that?
All right. In the Second Amendment, it says, whereas pursuant to the terms of the master agreement, if changes in the base bid specifications after the contract awarded results in savings, the city receives the entire benefit of any difference in price as a result of substitution of specifications. That was the way it was originally written.
That's in the original contract.
Right.
But in the contract now, that's why we're having this resolution, is because they're proposing this value engineer change order, which essentially we're splitting the savings because they're doing the engineering, they
But-
came up with it.
Yeah,
And this
we're
is,
only
again,
getting it as a credit. We're getting it as a credit if we go over the 500,000, if they go over the 500,000.
Yes.
But that would require a
Essentially, yeah.
change order, wouldn't it?
Yes, correct.
To go over anything
So
over
now
the 34.
theoretically, we have another
24,000.
$123,000 in addition to that 500. So theoretically, the change order, the contingency is now 500 plus the 123.
And if we don't
It
go
would be
over that,
623.
if we don't go over the 500, go over by 500,000, we get no
Well,
benefit, correct?
Now it would be 500 plus 123.
Right, but if we don't go over that, we get no benefit?
Oh, well, no, you wouldn't get a benefit. But
You what?
you wouldn't get a benefit if it
Right,
didn't go
okay.
over the contract
Well, you would get the
value.
benefit of not spending the 124,
Yes.
the $258,000 would not get spent, so that would then
They've already-
translate.
We're not
Right.
spending it, that's determined, they've already came
Right,
up
but you
with
wouldn't
a
have
cheaper
to-
way of doing it.
You wouldn't have to lay out the money from the city and then get reimbursed.
I mean,
just
there's a lot
pool
of,
taxpayer dollars.
This is a very complicated project, and it's still in its infancy, and there's been many changes that are coming on the horizon. And I don't have a lot of dollar values on any of them yet, but I'm telling you, any dollar we can save or get a change or credit for is good.
Okay,
It's very
thank you.
positive. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the council? All right, any from the public? All right, seeing none, on to item 6. Thank you, Jeff.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase replacement parts for boardwalk benches from the sole resource provider.
I'll take it for the beginning, Joe, if there's any
Okay.
in-depth stuff. So,
Okay.
right now, we have 921 benches that are up on the boardwalk. Over the last, since the installation of those benches began, about 6 years ago or so, maybe a little more, we've spent a total of $334,666 on repairing those benches. So when you average that out, the 921, you divide the 334 by that, you come up with about $363 per bench in maintenance fees over time. What this resolution is doing is giving us the money to go out and repair the 450 benches that are currently are in some state of disrepair, whether it's bent or broken pieces, whether some of the bolts have rusted, whatever needs to be done. And this will make the benches on the boardwalk 100% serviceable from that point forward. As we all know, we've already made modifications to the benches to cut the length of the base and the back of the benches off so that they're much less apt to break by people either doing work on it or ill-inclined individuals to have fun and break pieces off of our benches. Part of this resolution is also my talking with Tom Canner and Joe about evaluating if we do ever choose to replace benches, different types of benches that would not necessarily be a sole source provider. But the issue here about the sole source provision of the materials was made 7 years ago when the benches started to be deployed up on the boardwalk. So no more benches are being put out there. There are no new benches of this type being put out into service anymore, and this will catch us up to speed.
All
I
right.
guess, I don't know whether to ask Joe or you, Ron.
It's fine.
When
You can
we
ask him.
bought these benches, were there any type of guarantee on it?
You know, it was actually, these benches, they started this program even before Sandy. That's how long
I
ago
thought
it was.
6 years.
No, it was more than that, actually, because we actually had them taken off the boardwalk. Many of them were damaged, and they were actually all refurbished at the time, which was 2010 or so. They actually refurbished them all at that point. So at that point, they were all redone. And
After Sandy?
after Sandy. So they were, my point is they were up there.
So they were all new after Sandy.
They what?
They were all in a sense.
Essentially, yes.
Essentially new
We
after
started a clean
Sandy.
slate after Sandy, and now we're going to start a clean slate again.
So after Sandy, did the FEMA money pay for that?
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
it did.
So these benches are only from Sandy?
No, they were installed before Sandy, but we were able to get money to refurbish them all because there was damage.
So you
Remember,
said
'cause
they
the
were
board-
essentially new benches, though, right?
I mean, they're refurbished. benches.
Okay.
They refurbished them, correct. Remember, we took the whole boardwalk down.
No,
So
I-
every
I-
bench
I
had to
know
come
that.
off the boardwalk.
Yes.
Every single bench was taken off. They replaced all the legs on all the boardwalks, and they actually refurbished every single one of them before putting them back up there.
They, at the point of Sandy, though, they were already breaking, because.
I think it's always been a chronic problem. I mean,
Right, yeah.
I just so you know, Tommy Canner, Director of Operations, and Rob McKay, the acting superintendent of beach maintenance, are both here tonight to answer questions if you had them. And they really spend a lot of time and energy in their department actually, refurbishing these benches. So it's been a chronic problem for many years.
Well, that's because of the length. And, I remember discussing this years ago.
Yep. No, that's an issue. Yeah, the length is an issue. And they've been cutting them back, I believe, correct? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've cut them back. And, Tommy, has that really stopped the damage?
Yes, it's a huge help.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions from the council? All right, any from the public? All right, seeing none, on to item 7.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase a comprehensive financial subscription service.
So this item is called ClearGov. It's a budget cycle management suite software product that will actually create a new level of transparency for all of our operations here in the city. In real time, you'll be able to now see, once this is implemented, the spending down of our budget as it comes directly out of our payments. So as we spend our money, the public and the council will be able to actually see how the money is being spent in real time. It has basically provisions in it and some stuff that's also going to save us a lot of man hours too. So there's a capital budgeting portion, there's an operating budget portion. There's a thing called a digital budget booklet. So basically what it does is right now we pay a consultant actually to work with us to take the data that we have for our budget and create the budget book. This will automatically build the budget book based upon the prior year's budget and then the current year's input for the new budget cycle, so that the budget book will be automatically purchased. So in that regard, it'll actually start to save money. We originally were looking to do this in, I guess it was around August or so, but we worked with, and I give credit to Ina about this, she worked with the vendor. She got the vendor to remove some $11,000 in cost and also reduce the ongoing cost of the contract. Originally, it was built in as a 6% increase each year, and Ina actually, to our credit, was able to get that cut in half to 3% a year. Any questions?
Yeah. Ron, was this something that had to go out to bid, or?
Oh, I apologize.
It's okay, no,
He was leading forward,
I
so,
know.
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry. Jumped the gun.
Was this something that had to go out to bid?
This is a product that we were investigating different products, and Ina's office was investigating different products to assist with not only our transparency, from calls to the council to be more transparent with the public, but also to assist the operations of the comptroller's office to be able to build a budget book and give tools to our departments to have direct input into the budget cycle, directly into what's going to be published. So we're looking at this as, once it's learned by the city and by the staff, to actually save time.
So this goes with our Muni system?
Correct. So Munis will feed directly into, with all of its data, directly into this product.
Is this the only software that does that?
I don't know if it's, yeah.
What?
There's ones you could pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for, but you probably would have said no to those, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the council? Any from the public? All right, on to item 8.
Item 8 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase 3 2023 Chevrolet Tahoe sport utility vehicles for the police department.
So the 3 vehicles here are actually vehicles that we're able to get our hands on now. The vehicles, everybody's noticing that GM, Ford, and everybody went on strike. So we found these vehicles and were able to identify them. They do not have any lights in them or any of the police service package. They are police package vehicles, meaning that they are pursuit rated, but they are not outfitted yet. We will put the outfitting on it out of existing monies in the capital project, so it won't exceed that budget. some of the things in part of the plan that actually got this here. So this, unless you want me to wait for questions, Roy, I'm going to try to answer all your questions up front, but I don't know if I will. So 3 years ago, we really implemented a program where we're going to start purchasing 3 replacement vehicles for the police department a year. And while that was like basically the baseline minimum that we can do, you will recall that when I first got here, about 40% of our fleet was out at any given time due to the age and mileage of the vehicles. So there were numerous times a week where officers were doubling up in cars. So instead of having 5 cars out on patrol, you would have 2 officers in 2 cars, in effect only having 3 vehicles out on patrol, reducing the actual number of vehicles patrolling the city. And a car would be, instead of just doing post-Adam, it might be doing Adam and Boy at the same time, which is something that we wanted to avoid. So since this is our 3rd year of actually purchasing the vehicles, these will be the 7th, 8th, and 9th vehicles that we've purchased in that time on that program. Our rate of being out of service is hovering in around the 10 to 15% range. So what that actually means is when we had the older vehicles, we would need more vehicles in the fleet because we had to have more cars as backups because of the frequency that the older cars were breaking. Just since my time here, we've replaced at least 4 motors and transmissions, not including front ends, differentials, rear ends, and things like that, just to keep the fleet in service. Those issues are starting to rapidly diminish now because the age of the fleet is newer. They require much less repair. So these 5 vehicles are going to take 5 vehicles that exist right now, push them down into the fleet to be utilized for non or less emergencies, so they're not going to be on patrol as much. These vehicles will be taking the place of those. And then we'll push other vehicles out into the city so that non-emergency, more, you would say casual use of the vehicle can get these things to complete end of life. Your vehicles in the police service, they get involved in pursuits, they get involved in chases, they get involved in all sorts of things that are very taxing on the vehicle. So in essence, the purchase of these 3 vehicles, we're going to reduce our fleet by 5. So a net decrease of 2 will result out of this because we're finally able to start to decrease the size of our fleet because we no longer need as many spares.
I'm sorry, I missed that part. I understand you have the 3, we're able to move 5 down. But
right.
Eventually, does that the 5 are going out, or you say 2 are going out?
So 2 are going to leave the fleet, 5 are going to be, total of 5 vehicles are going to be moved in the fleet. 2 are going to leave, 3 are going to leave the fleet based on these. 2 additional vehicles are going to leave. So 5 will leave our fleet in entirety, 3 will come in.
So we're going to have 5 less vehicles.
We're going to have 2 total less vehicles in net.
Yeah, because we're...
5 will come out of the fleet. Net reduction will be 2.
And do you know offhand how many vehicles we have in the fleet? I thought it was 70.
I don't recall off the top of my head. It's hovering around 70, so this will push us down into the upper 60s.
And what's our ultimate goal? Do you know?
So that's going to eventually come. It's hard to predict, right? So if we stay on the course that we are now, the entirety of the fleet wouldn't get replaced for a decade, well over 2 decades. But the patrol fleet is what's most important. So we can get a lot longer use out of a vehicle by taking it off of patrol and using it as specialty vehicles or as special vehicles or as just transporting things. So there's a lot of other uses that we have for cars. So I'm assuming that our fleet should balance out someplace around 60.
60.
Someplace. What's that the assumption is if we continue the 3 vehicle replacement, into the future. Yes, so it would be a reduction. I think the total number of fleet that we had, the highest, was about 73, and we're down in the 60s now. So if it keeps on going, we'll be able to keep reducing, which also saves us on insurance and everything else. So it's a very good thing.
And the last question, how many patrol vehicles do we have?
So you mean on the street at any given time?
No,
or
how many do we have? I mean, we're replacing 3 a year, so...
Mike, do you happen to know how many are actually marked? 12 marked. vehicles. So,
So,
and they typically last, the manufacturer recommends 3 to 4 years, we typically get 5.
4 years for a vehicle.
Yeah, because they run all day long. So, and we've increased the number of patrol vehicles that we have actually out there. We're able to actually, and with the start of the new contract, we should be fielding, we're hoping 6 cars on a regular basis instead of 5. So we're, increasing the number of vehicles that we have on patrol as well. But that doesn't include your supervisory vehicle, which we now will also have, so that would be a 7th vehicle on patrol. So most of our fleet would be out there, and the older vehicles, the ones that are 3 or 4 years old, would then start to become the backups to the newer cars, and you just keep rotating until you start to push them down lower in the fleet. It's just a way to manage your fleet to get the most you can out of your cars. There comes a point in time, which I've explained before, where it's way too expensive to keep a car on the road. We had one of our Tahoes that we had already put 2 engines and a transmission and rear end in it. You could have bought a new car for the amount of money that we kept on putting into it, so it didn't make any sense.
So Ron, these 3 are the only ones that need to be purchased this year?
No, we could probably use 9 or 10 vehicles, but we don't have the money for that.
Right.
So we stage everything to spread it out over time. So we have figured out that 3 vehicles every year
Right.
going
Okay.
forward will keep the fleet from the position where it was in when I got here, which cars hadn't been purchased in, I think it was 3 or 4 years they hadn't bought a new car. We were still using cars that were gifted to us from PDs down in Florida. When I got here, they were given to us because they were no longer using it, and we used those cars for 6 years. We really, it was one of the reasons why the garage was so expensive to run, was because we were spending so much money maintaining these cars. It just made no sense. In the long term, it was costing us more money not to buy cars.
Okay, any more questions? All right, any questions from the public? Okay, on to item 9.
Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to renew Barracuda email protection and backup cloud services software.
So this is, as the resolution says, it's the antiviral software and the cloud backup for our email system, and it's just a standard contract to renew.
All right, any questions from the council? Any from the public?
I'm sorry, just one. This is $38,000 a year,
That's correct.
and they're 225 users?
Yes, and that does go up, like these 2 new police officers that we just hired will both require email accounts. So we buy ranges of licenses, so say it's between 210 and 225, and then the next range might be 225 to 245, whatever the licenses arrangement is with this contractor.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from the council? Any from the public? Okay, on to item 10.
Item 10 is a resolution authorizing budget amendment to the capital funds project budget. Oh, and ignore this is not for publication only, I'm sorry, that is a typo.
So, you can handle this one. It's a little bit complex, and I know there's going to be some questions from the council.
Good evening, Ina Rosnick, City Controller. So this resolution is to amend budget in Capital Projects Fund to allow for the receipt of funds and the disbursement of funds in connection with the sewer consolidation project. The project is a complicated project because it's done by both city and the county. George, anytime you can interrupt me if I'm saying something incorrect. From the capital project perspective, so the county manages the project from the construction standpoint. The project is paid by the grants from federal and state government. The city is the recipient of the grants. So because the city is the recipient of the grants and the grants work on a reimbursement basis, somehow you have to get $169 million, right, the cost of the project, as a working capital. So that capital is coming from the EFC, and basically what these amendments do, they establish accounts in our capital project fund to account for the receipt of the funds from the EFC, for the disbursements of the funds from the EFC, for the receipts of the grants from FEMA and the Office of the Governor, whatever, storm recovery, and the disbursements from using these monies, the payment of the loan back to the EFC.
So if I can put this in layman's terms,
Yes.
it's basically a checking account that the grant money will come in and then it'll go back out to pay the bills, correct?
Kind of, more like a checking account that I have with my daughter, where I put the money in and she gets to spend it.
There you
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's basically an
Yes.
account for us to put the money in and the money will then go out and pay bills. Okay.
Yes.
Any questions from the council?
Yeah, Ina, is this completely funded?
They say so. You've had Jane Hodak here a couple of months ago, and she said that the interest that we pay will be very minimal. So for the amount of time that the city will be owing money to the EFC, when the money is used to pay, and until we get paid by FEMA and pay back to the EFC, there will be a short period of time that we might owe some interest on. But on a $169 million project, I do not anticipate that this amounts to be material. And after the county takes over the operation, they take over.
Interest on 169 million does sound material to me.
Well, not
even
if it's outstanding for a week, right? And we're
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
borrow $169 million at a time. We're
Yeah.
only going to be borrowing whatever we need to pay vendors.
And-
So,
And I think you told us that it costs money to set this up.
yes.
And we're not reimbursed for that. It's like 6,000 to set it up?
So yes, to establish an escrow account, like your regular commercial bank, like banks in which we have accounts, so we like Chase, Capital, One, TD Bank, they would not accommodate us. So it had to be a special bank that we actually, it was a very long process. It took since August of this year to establish this account because of the materiality of this transaction and also the fact that there are two parties involved.
But is this a one-time fee setting up the account, or every time the money comes into escrow?
There is
do
an
we-
annual fee thereafter of $1,500.
So it's 6,000 to set it up and 1,500 a year?
Yeah.
After
So
that?
hopefully we'll do it in what, a year? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, but that will be reimbursed to us. So
Wait,
this
what will-
$6,000, we'll charge it back to FEMA.
Oh, it will be
Yeah,
reimbursed?
yeah,
Oh, that's
will
what,
be- Yeah, there is a cost to that, but whatever costs we're incurring in connection with this project,
Ex-
everything will be charged back to FEMA and.
except the interest, though, right?
Except the interest.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the council? Any from the public? Okay, on to item 11.
Item 11 is a resolution authorizing publication of a notice of public hearing of an application to waive off-street parking requirements for premise 136 East Park Avenue, second floor. This item is for publication only, and a hearing will be held November 21st at 7 p.m. Item 12 is a resolution authorizing publication of a notice of public hearing of an application to waive off-street parking requirements for premise 806 West Beach Street. This item is for publication only, a hearing will be held November 21st at 7 p.m. Item 13 is approval of minutes of prior meeting, October 17th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay, on to the voting. Item 1 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding electrical code. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to accept and execute a grant on behalf of the City of Long Beach from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services and authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 3 is a resolution establishing base proportions in accordance with the provisions of Article 19 of the Real Property Tax Law. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Excuse me. Item 4 is a resolution authorizing settlement of certiorari proceedings. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract amendment with Basilico Bove JV. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
I'm for saving $125,000, yes.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase replacement parts for the boardwalk benches from the sole source provider. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase a comprehensive financial subscription service. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 8 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase 3 2023 Chevrolet Tahoe sport utility vehicles for the police department. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to renew Barracuda email protection and backup cloud services software. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 10 is a resolution authorizing budget amendment to the capital projects fund budget. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 11 is a resolution authorizing publication of a notice of public hearing of an application to waive off-street parking requirements for premise 136 East Park Avenue, second floor. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
And finally, item 12 is a resolution authorizing publication of a notice of public hearing of an application to waive off-street parking requirements for premise 806 West Beach Street, street floor. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
City manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the city clerk. Who will make a motion to close the meeting?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes. All right, time for good and welfare. Just in case it's your first time, you signed up, you get 3 minutes. And first up tonight, Jennifer Sarafin.
Good evening. Hi. Can I ask Roy a question? Why did you vote no on number 5?
I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with the contract saying that we should get the full amount and splitting it. I'm not comfortable with the fact that unless they go over by 500,000, which they have a contract, and it really bothers me that contracts don't seem to mean what they used to mean, you know. So you enter into a contract for 36 million, and then they go over it by 500,000, and we already have that built in because we expect people to go over contracts, which is kind of a
So
horrible
are we
way.
saying that we're going to pay it even if they go over? And you're saying we shouldn't, right?
No,
No.
if they go over, we have 500,000 built in as a contingency, okay? If they go over beyond the 500, according to this, we have 120,000 put aside. But the original contract had, if they did it differently, we get all the money. In
Okay.
other words, and what we're doing is we're saying, well, you guys came up with a way to do it differently, so we're splitting the money with you.
Okay.
I'm just not-
I get it, yeah.
Okay. and-
So just to add a little bit more clarity to that too, the way these are actually designed, this is a concept that New York State put into the contracts. And really what it's designed to do, which is what happened here, is it's to incentivize a contractor that if he sees a way that he can do something that still meets the specification, but they can do it cheaper with a different type of engineering, they'll invest the time and energy to engineer something new while reducing the overall cost of the contract.
Which is going to lead me to my next
Right.
question. When was this contract bid? Was it back in
2019.
Do you remember that?
2019?
Was it 19?
Yeah, which is going
It was
to,
a while ago.
yeah, which is going to lead me to the next round, which you're probably all going to call me crazy.
No.
No, okay. So, is this the same one as Michael Pasilico that owns this company?
Do you know that, Joe?
I don't think so.
Okay, we don't know if it's Michael Pasilico with 2 L's? Okay, because Michael Pasilico with 2 L's has big ties to Equinor, just FYI, if it's the same company. Which it might if it goes back to 2019. Just an FYI to keep your ears and your antennas up, because they all are tied in with contributions and money and NYSERDA and all of it, because we've done a lot of research. So I'm just letting the city know that there is a tie to that construction company if it's the same Michael Pasilico. I just think you should know that, that's all. Also, back to the next question, what are we doing as a city and telling our lawyers to do, goes to Mr. Cohen and the other lawyer that I can't say because that's all privileged information, to keep the ordinances, make sure the ordinances are being kept and very strictly when Equinor is asking, because they're still there. They have not, everybody, this whole town seems to think they've gone away, but they have not gone away. They are still pushing forward, and I want to make sure that we are being very strict on our ordinances and telling them that those are not bending. So what is the city doing to make sure they know that? Because it doesn't seem that they know that. And I can't say why I say that, but I have to say that.
Yeah, I mean, they submitted a document that seeks to waive certain ordinances. That has not come up in negotiations yet. So, it's just not ripe to have that conversation yet.
Okay, well, just FYI, it's out there, so just, we need to be very strong on that.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Christina Kramer.
Good evening. I have no voice.
You're out
It's not-
partying too much
I
last night.
wish. I was sick before I got there. So I have a question. Is Eli Elby-Bott not working on the case anymore? Wasn't he one of the lawyers?
Yes, he withdrew from the case.
He withdrew. Okay. Do you know why, or that's not information you share?
That's not information I'm going to share.
Okay, that's fine. There was some construction on Harrison over by the bridge. I was just curious what that was going on. Was it Equinor related? Maybe it was last week or like a week and a half ago.
Where was
like
it?
at the foot of the bridge.
No. No.
Okay. I believe you. I was just curious. You know, you run around and you get
There's no land-based work being done with regard to that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. November 13th, my understanding is that Equinor is putting boats in the ocean for environmental studies for 2 years. Do you know about that? Did you have to give permits for that? Can you tell us anything about that?
My understanding is they sent us the same information sheet they sent out to the public. It's they're tracking fish migration.
Migratory.
So they're putting
They're putting
acoustic
transmitters
trackers in the water, but it's all in state waters, so the state had to give them permits.
They
for that.
basically tag fish and then they track where the fish
Yeah, I
go.
think it said they tag 13 fish a year or something like that and follow the fish migration.
Okay. But that had nothing to do with the city.
No.
No.
We found out about it at the same time as the public.
And then my second to last question is, the city hired Nelson Pope Forest as an environmental company. Am I correct? Nelson Pope?
Yes.
Yes. I was just wondering if any of you could elaborate on the findings, just like share with the community what they found out. It was 16 or 17 pages. So I was just wondering if, you could just tell us what their determinations were.
It's a little outside of my expertise, but if we did file the report as part of our public comments, so you can go online.
I did look at it. I was hoping that, you could summarize it, because
I'm the wrong guy to
I
ask.
could look at it with these guys.
I'll take a crack at it. What they basically did is they were trying to justify that Equinor's dismissal of the alternate routes was incomplete, that it wasn't a robust enough argument against it, that some of the arguments they were making were wrong, were just factually incorrect. In some cases, they were saying that arguments they were saying why they should do something, they later in the report say use the same reason for not doing something. So what they were looking for is those discrepancies to say, their argument actually was the alternate routes actually are better,
feasible, right.
make more sense than coming through the city.
Okay.
And I believe they said that they claimed that even the way that Equinor put it together supported that argument.
Correct. Right, because they even admit that even Equinor says this isn't ideal.
Right.
And Beacon Wind and Ambaric say the same thing. This is just not the place. Okay, and my final statement really isn't, I didn't come here to talk about this, but just an observation I've been making. I know you're looking for a city manager. I'm wondering why you don't ever consider that guy. He knows everything, and he saves us money all the time. And you guys love him. How come he's not in consideration?
Oh, believe me, I asked.
Why not? All right,
He has as much interest as I do.
all right, thank you so much.
All right, have a good night. Karen Riskin.
Hello, good evening. I have two questions. Going back to something that Jen said, and she was talking to you about the ordinances, I would like to know, with the outcome of the council agreeing that Equinor was making the wrong choices, and you decided with us in agreement that we should fight it, and we should tell them we're not interested and we don't want anything to do with you or with that program. Why would you consider giving them any options with ordinances? In reality, you should just tell them we don't want any of your business.
Because we don't make that decision, the PSC makes that decision.
Why should they?
But that's the law.
That's the law. That's the New York
Well,
Public
That's the law.
honestly, this has to do with our town, and why do they decide for us in this aspect of things that it's their choice?
Because the New York State Legislature passed a law that says they can
I
do
mean,
that.
I'm sorry, I'm still new at doing things, and I just wasn't privy to
Yeah,
that.
it's just, that's the state law. I mean, if the Assembly and the Senate up in Albany changed the law, you know,
So
that
in
wouldn't be
essence,
the
don't
case.
you think if it's something, if the PSC says that we can't go back at them and say we don't want it?
again, that's the state law says they can overrule all our local zoning.
And we can't show a protest?
Well, sure, you could protest.
Well, that's what I'm leading up to.
Of course.
And the other part of my questions are basically this. Going back to the Monmouth University investigation in the water, first of all, I'd like to know, does anybody know who hired them to do this? And secondly, does anybody know what their purpose is?
Well, we just said that tracking, they sent out that
They want to track it,
information
but
sheet.
what, for
They're tracking
what?
fish migration. Why? I don't know.
So who hired them to do this? I mean, where do they just come out of the blue to
I
come to our
assume-
waters?
I assume Equinor hired them.
Ah, there's the answer. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Eileen Hessian.
Good evening, Eileen Hessian. This is a thank you. Last week, the Senior Advisory Board hosted a Friendsgiving luncheon at St. Mary's Auditorium, and I just wanted to give thanks to the city for the part they played, especially Joe Brand and Cindy Rogers, who worked tirelessly to make this a big success for over 100 seniors, and a couple of other guests like Commissioner Walsh and Liz Treston and John Benda, who also attended. Joe provided all of the food. Harvey Wiesenberg donated some money. Joe got lots of donations from the town stores to give out to the seniors, and it was a very, very successful day for 100 people. So thank you, Long Beach. It was a great day.
All right, thank you. All right, that's it, everyone. Thanks for coming, and everyone, I hope you have a good night.
Happy birthday, Veronica. I think it's being appropriate now.